but I have this right here.
Is that the VHS?
Oh, yeah. That's the VHS in all its glory.
Dude, show me the back again. Remember the backs of VHSs
Oh, yeah.
where you got still shots and Roger Ebert?
And also, tell me that poster is not dope.
Everything about that poster just screams professionalism. It screams someone got a raise.
That poster also says that we're letting Tim Burton have control here.
All right. You want me to kick it off?
Do it.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Sanctum Sanctorum podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Joey.
And I am not Joey, but I'm Chris.
Not Joey. He's very much Chris. Sanctum Sanctorum, where comics and Christ culture collide. On this show, we love to take comic-accurate movies, not-so-comic-accurate movies, and find Christ culture within them, faith themes, spirituality, because they are ripe within them, all while reviewing good and bad that we see within these movies. Chris, how you doing today?
I am doing fantastic because we are entering my favorite season. Now, I love Halloween, but I'm a Christmas guy all day.
Especially when our comic book movies have themes like what we're covering today. But before we dive into that, quick, you can only take 2 minutes, so we're going to put 2 minutes on the clock. If you go over it, we'll all know.
All right.
Nightmare Before Christmas, Halloween movie or Christmas movie? Go.
Yes. Now, people will argue that it's only a Christmas movie because it is about, them preparing for Christmas. But
Okay.
It opens with Halloween, and it's about the town, Halloween town preparing for Christmas and what Christmas would look like through the eyes of monsters and Halloween creatures. So I say, watch it at Halloween, watch it at Christmas, but also watch it all year round because it's just a wonderful movie. It's my favorite movie. I don't know
Fair
if you
enough.
can tell from my water glass here.
From my everything about me. I'm not going to take 2 minutes. I'm going to say it's a Christmas movie just because it says Christmas in the title.
Well, that's fair.
There you go.
And there's a Friday the 13th in December this year.
Is there?
Or A Nightmare Before Christmas.
Get out.
Just saying. Just saying.
Terrible. Just saying is the theme of our day today. Today we are covering none other than 1992's Batman Returns. Chris, I would love for you to take just a second. We're going to dive into our comic culture moment in just a minute, but you and I talked briefly, and I'm doing the thing that I said I hate. I hate when people say, oh, we talked about this off camera, but we did. Talk to me a little bit about this movie when it comes to Tim Burton, right? When we say Tim Burton, a lot of people in the comic world understand who Tim Burton is. He's given us some of our great gothic, quirky, horror light movies that when you look at it, you know instantaneously this is Tim Burton. Where does Batman Returns fit in the Tim Burton becoming Tim Burton as a household name legacy?
All right, so this was Tim Burton's 5th full-length feature movie. He had started with Pee-wee's Big Adventure, where he wasn't able to fully be himself because he was, working with someone else. He was playing in someone else's yard.
Real quick, do a Pee-wee impersonation.
Oh, I can't. I will not. Absolutely not do that. That's like, yeah, can't do that. Don't want to make that a thing.
Yep.
Following the success of that, they let him do Beetlejuice. And that was all Tim Burton. That was, Tim Burton heavy. Following that, they let him do Batman, but they had very specific guidelines for Batman. If you watch Batman 89, it's not, you kind of know that Tim Burton is involved because of some of the actors
but
but
tight reins.
it doesn't really scream Tim Burton. But because that was so successful, they said, "Oh, well, we want to do a sequel. Take it, go
There you go.
do it, make it the way you want." Which is why when you see this one, there's so much more black and white stripes. There's, it's set at Christmas. Danny Elfman kind of goes full out with the orchestration. It's very much a Tim Burton movie, and that unfortunately was the downfall of the Tim Burton Batman universe, because they thought it was too dark. Critics were not happy with it. They thought it, and studio executives, so that when they said they want to do a third one and he came at them with a story, they kept pushing him to do something else. So he kind of got the idea that, like, okay, so you don't want me to do Batman 3, which is why they
Right.
gave it to Joel Schumacher, and we got the, mess that is Batman Forever and Batman and Robin. So, but before we dive in, if you love the Tim Burton Batman universe like I do and like Joey does, there are ways to enjoy it. This is the first of a duology book that just came out called Batman Resurrection. This takes place 6 months after Batman 89. It introduces characters like Clayface and others. It also has the first appearances of Max Schreck and Selena Kyle, who are both in Batman Returns. And if you love Batman Returns and want to see how the story could have kept going, there's this comic called Batman 89, which continues the story of Harvey Dent. It continues the story of what happened to Catwoman after her supposed demise. So I fully recommend both of these things, going and picking them up and reading them and enjoying them, so you can still live in the Burton verse.
Which is a great segue to our culture moment. The title of this movie is Batman Returns. And when you hear the word returns, obviously that's a sequel.
Absolutely.
And sequels are riddled, pun intended, within the comic universe. We always, I want to say we always get a sequel. It is very rare. I'd say it's the exception to the rule that you get a one-off.
With any movie or with comic book movies?
Comic book movies in particular.
Absolutely.
But ever since MCU success, everybody's looking for how do we extend this, and some of that's financially driven. Others of it's like, well, you can only tell this part of the story in a digestible fashion. But I think there's 4 categories where a sequel works, or let me rephrase that. There's 4 categories for sequels. There's when it works, there's when it doesn't, there's when it's demanded, and then there's when it's forced.
Okay.
I feel like when it works is The Dark Knight, right? Like, we started a story, everybody liked it, it made sense to make a second one, and it's a continuation of the character. Works totally. When it doesn't work is Joker 2, where, all right, you went totally off into Neverland, and
it wasn't needed.
Right. Totally not asked for. Like, that could have been hey, we have an Elseworld story. This is an entity unto itself, and it was perfect as is. Therefore, we don't need to keep milking the cash cow.
Yep.
I feel like Dark Knight Rises is a good example of when it's demanded, because it's very clear that the character's story isn't finished yet and that it could keep going. And so, because it's loved and because it's well done and because the story's not finished, you have to then give another sequel. In that case, it's a threequel, but you know what I mean.
Right, you're right. So you have to continue the story, but I think that there are subcategories there, because yes, it was demanded, but it did not meet the level of the first two.
Oh no, that's a totally separate conversation as to whether or not it works.
Right.
But just the idea of creating it and working with the fact that I've got 2 different stories in mind, that's a whole conversation as it is. Because then you get into this last category of when it's forced. It's like you only tell half a story because you know you've got something else going, and then audiences really don't respond to that first one. But you're like, hold on, we've got a second one coming. It's like, well, you didn't nail the first one, so why are you pushing the second? And so it sort of spreads out the idea of storytelling to the degree that, like, if you can't nail the first one, don't worry about your cinematic universe. Don't worry about your trilogy. Just worry about films as they come. And then if you've got other stories to tell and the audience connects with them, great. Otherwise, I think we get where we are right now in comic culture, which is oversaturation, poor storytelling, and legacy films that just are not asked for.
Mm-hmm. Now, just to clarify, your last category there, the forced ones, would that apply to movies that are based on something like a book series? So like you have the Harry Potter series or the Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. Those kind of needed one for, every book in order to like tell the complete story. But
Sure.
some of the Harry Potter movies are better than others. Some of the Lord of the Rings and Hobbit movies are better than others. Would you have felt the same if they only did the Fellowship of the Ring and the Two Towers, and then if the Two Towers did badly, it's like, okay, well, let's not bother finishing that. Like, well, you got like 8 stories in this world that are now incomplete. So would you think it would apply to something that is designed from the beginning to need this many movies to tell the whole story?
No, that in particular, like, what's on your plate before you even start. So if you're thinking of Fellowship, you have to tell Return of the King.
Mm-hmm.
Where you get into Half-Blood Prince and why am I blanking on the last Harry Potter book?
Deathly Hallows.
Deathly Hallows. Where you get into Deathly Hallows, breaking it into 2 parts, yeah, that makes sense because there's a lot of character development. There's a lot of story wrap up. There's 7 films before that you need to integrally pay off.
Mm-hmm.
If you're just going at it from a box office success rate, I think of the Divergent series was a good example of this. First one started out strong. Second one's okay. Third one, not so great, and they literally just wrapped it up because they knew they had to. There's more to those stories.
They didn't even wrap it up. They never released the last book, so they never released
exactly.
the last movie. So you have a completely incomplete story.
Right, and that I think is just box office driven. That's financial decisions right there, and everybody knows it.
Mm-hmm.
Whether or not, and some of these things are risks, right? Like, you just don't know how things are going to land. I think Batman Begins did a good job of reinventing the character coming out of the Schumacher phase and saying this is what a serious take on Batman would be. That could have been a one-off, but the response was so good. Right? And then you get a career-defining, character-defining performance in Heath Ledger that I don't think anybody saw coming. So sometimes you just don't know.
No, that's true. Sometimes you just don't know. But when you have something like the MCU, when you have an overarching story, do you need all the movies to tell that story? You know what I mean? Like, do we need Iron Man 3? Like no. We talked about in our last episode, did you need Captain Marvel? Now, I know that wasn't a sequel, but also in the world of sequels, are all of these movies sequels to each other? Because they're all telling one story. So even when you have an origin movie, and I'm thinking probably after the Avengers, when you have a movie like Captain Marvel or you have a movie like Doctor Strange that are introducing these characters to us, but they're still part of the overarching story and they're still, involved in the ending. Do those count as indirect sequels or are they spin-offs?
It's so specific, right? Because each one of them has a moment that plays into the final payoff of Endgame. Let's take Avengers. You sort of need that to a degree, but that's really where I think a TV series would have come in instead of making it's so crucial that you come to the theater and experience this $2.5 billion film. Something like Iron Man 3, I'm sort of torn on it because it's like, no, we did not need that and it didn't do very well, but you really wouldn't understand Tony's PTSD motivation in Ultron if you didn't have Iron Man 3. You could have written it But like I can see both being completely legitimate as to why.
Well, yeah, legitimate, but I think we go as far as helpful, but helpful versus necessary.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah, the X-Men universe is another one. Like that, the sequels of that movie are such a mess that there are,
Yeah.
they keep using the next
Talking about
movie to try
Apocalypse is
and
flawless.
talking about oh yeah, Apocalypse. That's a top one.
That's unwatchable.
There are so many timelines now in each new movie. Days of Future Past tried to fix the timeline. First Class tried to fix the timeline. Deadpool and Wolverine tried to fix the timeline. And, they all kind of worked to a degree in doing that. But then I think that they just kind of stopped. They have the new, the young cast,
Yep.
and then realize these aren't working. So let's focus on Deadpool. And now we've kind of reached the end of Deadpool, and it's like, okay, so now what do we do with the X-Men? Do we just start from the beginning again? Do we try to reconnect all this stuff? Which they are going to do, but I think that's why they have these things like the multiverse. But I think that sometimes you can lean too heavily on wanting to have a franchise and without waiting, like you said, focus on one story, focus on your opening story, so that if that's all you have, you've done something great. Because if you keep doing it with the bigger picture and then you have to stop halfway through, that leaves me as a fan, disappointed.
Yeah, and I think there's a couple categories with it. It's like, tell a story and tell it well. If there's multiple chapters in that, plan for that. But also focus on the individual. Not everything has to be a cinematic universe. But also, keep making this stuff because culturally I like it. So it's sort of just like, I don't think everything has to have this huge financial success and warrant multiple things for you to keep chugging out content, because like fans are going to be fans. And I'm going to like whatever new Superman movie comes out because I like Superman. Mm-hmm. So does it have to blow me away every single time? I think it has to have quality. But I think if we just keep thinking like, okay, it's gotta go for 20 seasons, or it's got to be better than anything that's ever come before, I think you're doomed to failure, because now you're setting the wrong benchmark.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with that. I think that's really true. I think also that it can be difficult to define what would count as a sequel. So if we take a movie like Justice League, or we take a movie like Avengers Infinity War or Endgame, Justice League is technically the first movie called Justice League, but it's a culmination of the singular movies that came before it. Endgame, right, it's called Avengers Endgame, so it's technically the fourth Avengers movie, but it's not really a direct sequel to the to Age of Ultron. It's you need most of what came before it to understand that story. You can't just watch Avengers 1, 2, 3, and 4 and be like, wow, that was a compelling story. Well, no, you're missing 75% of the story.
Right. You don't know why Thor loses his eye. You don't know where, like, just take Thor. You don't know where Mjolnir went. You don't understand why there's no Asgard anymore if you just watch Avenger movies. Just watching Avenger movies.
You don't even know who half the characters are.
I was just going to say, new characters come in. You don't know where Wanda and Pietro came in. All of a sudden, Vision is now Vision. Like, that's very unsettling.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you do sort of need it, and that's the way they designed it. But I think they've done a good job of making sure that every movie can stand alone. And I think that's where the MCU in particular does shine above most cinematic universes.
Okay.
They take their characters and their story so seriously. Now, some are better than others, but none of them are unwatchable. Right? Like, it's not like, I don't know what's going on. I can't enjoy this and have a good time at all. No, they actually fit really well together, but each one sort of works. And if you're following a character study, then yeah, there's 3 parts to the Cap story. There's 3 parts to the Thor story. And all of it actually fits into the Avengers overarching story. So I think that a sequel needs to make sense. I think you can't just financially make those decisions, but also if it fits into the bigger narrative, go for it.
Okay.
Because we're going to love it.
And you look at it, so something like The Empire Strikes Back, which, if you look at Star Wars A New Hope, that can stand on its own. That could be a single movie, and you don't have to watch anything else. Empire Strikes Back is a sequel.
You're teasing me getting into this, aren't we?
It's a superior sequel, but it's not really a standalone movie. So then how do you do something like that? To me, then you start moving into, like we said, like the Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter territory, where you kind of need all the movies to tell the complete story. You didn't when you started. Kind of the same with the first Harry Potter. If that was the only adaptation they did, you didn't really need anything else after that.
Sure. But it's a continuation of the characters that you love because they nailed the landing in the first one.
Yes, but then can you watch, can or should you watch a sequel on its own?
I can,
having seen them enough times, but like if you were to introduce somebody,
can you blind walk into something?
Yeah, like
can you just watch Winter Soldier?
Right. Well, okay. So like we both have kids. When we start introducing them to things like the MCU and Star Wars and all these things, will you show them in order of for completion's sake? Or will it be like, oh, you want to watch a Star Wars movie? Well, this is my favorite one, or this is the best one. But if it's not the first one, then it's like, then we can go back and watch it, then you got to explain so much.
No, you're not starting Star Wars on a Force Awakens, right? Like you have to tell it canonically.
Right. But do you feel that way about the MCU too? Or would you just pick like,
depends on what story you're telling.
The Infinity Saga.
Yeah, you start with Iron Man.
You start with Iron Man. Oh, you're watching release order? Oh, I watch chronological order.
I don't have time for that.
Listen, there's a timeline to these things.
Of course there are, but that's upon the second viewing.
Okay.
There's also the nostalgia of like, this is how I had to experience it. This is how you're going to experience it.
That's fair. Now, would you say, to kind of wrap up here, what would you say is your top 3 sequels, direct sequels, that are better than the original?
Empire Strikes Back, Dark Knight. That's a great question. How do you Winter Soldier? Hands down.
Yeah, so that's when I say direct sequel, it's like you can't say Avengers as the sequel to Iron Man. You know what I mean?
Right. No.
Avengers would be the first Avengers movie.
And your answers to that question?
Mine would be, actually, I like the Winter Soldier. That's pretty solid. I would say the Winter Soldier. I would say Terminator 2 is vastly superior. And today's review, Batman Returns, I think is superior to Batman 89.
Well, we're going to find out, aren't we? Why don't we hit a plot synopsis that will return you to a lighter time?
Do that. But before you do that, let us know in the comments and the reviews what your favorite sequel is. What sequels you think worked and didn't work. Make sure you let us know. Yeah,
definitely. Throw those in the Facebook, Instagram, YouTube space.
All right, hit it.
Foreboding music cued. Here we go. In Gotham City, the Penguin, a grotesque sewer-dwelling man-bird who looks like he took a bath in a vat of melted cheeseburgers, teams up with Max Schreck, a corporate villain so oily he could slip through a phone booth. Together, they hatch a plan to finally destroy Batman, Gotham's favorite brooding billionaire. But things take a turn when Shrek's neurotic assistant Selina Kyle accidentally discovers their evil plot. And because Gotham is a city of high stakes and low morals, Shrek tries to kill her by pushing her out a window. Luckily for Selina, this just so happens to transform her into Catwoman, a leather-clad anti-hero with a knack for chaos, 9 lives, and a serious attitude problem. Now, with a shared goal of bringing down Batman, Selina must decide where her allegiance lies. Team Penguin, Team Bat, or Team Cat. It's a showdown of seduction, slapstick, and sheer mayhem as Gotham's favorite freak show tries to decide whether it's better to rule the city or just get a decent night's sleep for once. Spoiler, they all choose chaos. In Tim Burton's Batman Returns. Dun, dun, dun.
Very nice. Very nicely done.
Thank you.
And Batman Returns, as we mentioned earlier, is directed by none other than Tim Burton and stars Michael Keaton, returning as Batman, Michelle Pfeiffer, Danny DeVito, Christopher Walken, and Michael Gough. And I can't wait to get into...
Pfeiffers.
The what? The what? Who what?
Michelle Pfeiffers.
Michelle Pfeiffers.
You ever see that Key and Peele skit?
Yeah. That kind of goes along with the guy who says all the names wrong.
Yep, that's it exactly. That's it. I got some really good stuff. Chime in where you feel appropriate, but you sort of just keyed it up that the actors in this movie are great. And one that surprised me was 2 seconds into the movie, Paul Rubens as Penguin's father.
Oh, I love it. And I love that.
That's great.
They brought him back as the Penguin's father in the show Gotham.
They did, much later, before his ultimate
nod.
passing.
That was a fun little nod, but yeah, that was great. And Mrs. Cobblepot, I forget the actress's name, was also in Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
Was she?
She was the diner waitress that Pee-wee works at.
Right.
So
anytime there's an actor where you're like, you look familiar, I wonder. Just IMDb other Burton films because he loves working with his people. Yep. Michael Gough is superb. He's the quintessential Alfred for me. He's not my favorite Alfred, but he is Alfred.
He's the original Alfred for me. He's my first Alfred.
He is the Alfred. He's just not my favorite.
Yeah.
You want to take a guess who my favorite Alfred is? It's gonna shock you.
Are we talking only movie Alfreds or all around?
Just movie Alfreds.
Just movie Alfreds. I would think it's Jeremy Irons.
It is Jeremy Irons
because he's also my favorite movie Alfred.
I love him. I think he's great. I think he was underused, but I never thought Scar would be Alfred, but it works. And he's got such the over it attitude, particularly with Affleck's older Batman. I felt like that just worked so well, but that's not this movie.
Right, so you've been Batman for 20 years. I've been doing this for 20 years too, and I'm exhausted by it.
And I'm exhausted. All right. There is something that I wish they developed more, but it's still good as it is. The disconnected parent bond between Bruce and Oswald. I wish they did a lot more with it. I wish it was the theme that runs through the entire movie. It's a nod, and you sort of see a moment of it, but I loved that was the connection between the antagonist and the protagonist. Mm-hmm. It wasn't just, oh, you're the opposite. Oh, you want something and I have to stop you because it's wrong. It's like, oh, there's a commonality. I forget where I heard it, but it was something like the villain and the hero are actually the same character. It's just that the rules no longer apply to the villain, whereas the hero is trying to adhere to the rules. And in this moment with the disconnected parent, the loss of identity and family because their parents are no longer there, that is a great unifying connection for both Bruce and Oswald.
And Max Schreck even says it at one point, if Oswald's parents hadn't abandoned him, you guys would have been roommates at prep school. And it's like, yeah, that's really true because he was part of the Cobblepots were Gotham elite. So, yeah, that's very true. They would have very much run in the same world.
Yeah. You said this to me. This is a timeless movie. It could be 1992, but it could also be 1942. Yeah, I love that.
There's one of the first shots of the movie is a traffic light, that's the walk, don't walk light. But then you see some of the cars Nobody's using a cell phone, which would have been, for the rich people, they would have had some form of cell phone. So it's definitely very out of time, and I do like that.
Yeah. Two more things that I have that really stood out to me. One is a subcategory, and there's a couple things that I want to point out, and then one's just a comment. So let's go with the subcategory first. There are so many good character dynamic moments in this movie. One that stands out is Wayne and Shrek. When they're having their first meeting before Selena walks in, the power dynamic and tension that is built in that moment is phenomenal. They are equals. They are both not giving any ground up. They've got one-liners. They dig at each other. There's seriousness, but it's also light. I mean, that character moment is so well developed. And I wish there was an entire film of those two going at it more. I get that there was 3 different villains, but each one of the hero and villain had a moment like this. Mm-hmm. You see it with Wayne and Shrek in that power dynamic. You see it with Bruce and Selena at the costume party when they're both dressed up as themselves. Mm-hmm. They're not wearing masks, which Dark Knight Rises played on, which I hadn't saw that until this viewing. But that moment of realization where they realize who the other one is because of the mistletoe crack, great character moment. And I up until this point have not given Burton enough credit for his character moments. Mm-hmm. And I felt like this film really captured them really, really well, particularly with the antagonist and protagonist meeting, having a moment, sharing some motives, moving the story along. All of it was done really, really well.
I think that character dynamic was there with Batman and the Penguin too, when they meet on the rooftop for the first time as well.
Yep.
He has these great interactions either as Bruce or as Batman with each one of our antagonists, and they're written really well. They're played really well. Even the directing choices for them are done just really well.
Batman kills. I don't know where the theory that he doesn't kill comes from, and I don't know why Affleck got such crap for it, but Batman kills.
I have that highlighted in my notes right here. He kills a bunch. He blows up the circus strongman. He lights the fire breather on fire. He does plenty of killing, or at least doesn't really work at saving them.
Which Batman Begins pulls that line. I'm not going to kill you, but I don't have to save you. It's sort of like what's cool about the character of Batman, which, we literally have a show rating films based on Batman. We like Batman. What I love about Batman is you get a nuanced whole of a character by seeing different iterations of him. And in this, you do see the cold-blooded, you get what you deserve. Like the justice displayed in him not doing something or him actively doing something.
Is it just, or is that, in the animated series, he says, I am vengeance and I am the night. So is that justice or is it vengeance? Like you're running amok in my city. You're hurting the innocent citizens of my city. So this is what's coming to you,
The answer is yes. Last thing I have as far as good, killer exploding penguins.
Yeah.
That's all I'll say.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, what more could you want?
I don't think I think every movie could stand to have a little more exploding penguins in it.
Just 10% more. I think we'd be okay.
One penguin per movie. I don't think that's too much to ask for.
What other good stuff do you have?
Well, I gotta say, you covered a lot of stuff, but I have almost all different things.
Really?
Than you have. Now, I have a couple of. You actually covered all of my pre-good and bad stuff. With the ambiguous time, Batman killing people. It's much more Tim Burton-y. The Penguins hideout. That's the most terrifying zoo I've ever seen in my life. who would go, I mean, I would
Hands
go
down.
there, but who would be like, who would be excited to be like, let's bring the kids to the zoo. That is a
Absolutely not.
terrifying zoo. And the opening to this movie is so sad, but also aggressively dark. You know what I
Are
mean?
you on bad or are you on good? Or are you on other?
This is my other. It's not good or bad, but like that shows like why, when they let Tim Burton off the leash, the opening to his movie is about parents putting their kid in a basket and dropping him into a river, and well, he's gonna drown or something terrible. It's just a very aggressively dark. I don't think it's a bad thing, but it like,
It's something to
yeah,
notice.
you notice, and I mean the kid eats the cat in the very beginning too, baby
Which
penguin.
I loved. It's those classic sound effects. I guess just because I've watched so many movies that you start hearing the Wilhelm scream is in here,
Yeah,
and that classic cat sound effect.
yeah.
Yep, that was right there, and I was like, there it is.
All right, other good stuff I have. I think that Chris Walken is a perfect villain in this.
He's good.
And to me, this is before Christopher Walken became like a caricature of himself. So he's
Right.
not
This is
he's not like
no cowbell hasn't started yet.
exactly. So he's not fully amped up, and he just does he's so sleazy, also a little charming. He's not quite good looking, but he's not ugly. It's very there's something about it that's like, man, this is the perfect villain. I just thought he was great.
He's actually the antithesis of Bruce, but almost in the same
But
way.
not Batman. He's Bruce's villain.
Well, that's what I mean. Bruce. He's Bruce's villain.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, that's great.
that's it.
Catwoman. The way you feel about penguins, exploding penguins, feel the way about Catwoman. Yeah, I don't even need to say more. This iteration of Catwoman was my first crush. I had a sleeping bag that had her and Batman and Penguin on it. I have a bunch of figures of Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman. It's very
A
special.
sleeping
It's
bag.
very special to me. So she was great. I love that, kind of like you said, the dynamic between Shrek and Wayne. I love that Bruce is clearly a capable businessman, which you see in that meeting. But also, like when he meets Selena for the first time, he does that kind of befuddled thing where it's like, "Oh, it's a pleasure for you to meet me. I mean, me to meet you." What did I say? Who? I'll pick you up at 7 or 5. 5. We'll not watch it together. I think
It's very charming how taken aback he is.
yes, and I think he does that really well. Of like, okay, he's very capable at doing business and standing up to a villain without being Batman, but also he like gets a little tongue tied and a little like dopey, and I kind of like
Yep.
that. Um, something that I don't know if it's a good thing, but I love how when Penguin and Catwoman meet for the first time, and he tries to seduce her, that doesn't work, so he jumps immediately into trying to get her to vote for him for mayor. It's like, oh, we could do this like sexy thing together. No, it's not happening. Are you a registered voter? Because I'm also running for mayor. It's like I need you in my corner somehow. I just thought it was funny. Um, the character designs I think are great. I love the Catwoman design. I love the Penguin design. He's almost, this is good and bad. He's a little cartoony looking, and I kind of like that.
It's the dark, whimsical aesthetic.
Yes, it's a dark fantasy, and I like that they lean into it with that. Another really funny thing that I found very funny was when Bruce and Selena are talking about what the newspapers are saying about Batman and Catwoman
Mm-hmm.
when they're like walking down the street, and it's like, yeah, I don't know what they mean. Batman, tried to help things. He wasn't destroying anything. Well, I mean, they say that Catwoman looks like she gained 10 pounds. That seems ridiculous. Like, that's funny. I think that's funny. It's almost like when Peter Parker tries to
I
defend
was
Spider-Man.
just gonna say. It's very Parker-esque.
I like that a lot. I thought that was fun. The directing choice to have a masquerade ball and have Bruce and Selena not wear masks
Yep.
because Bruce and Selena are the masks.
Yep.
That was just beautiful, beautifully done. I think all of our villains, to one degree or another, are very sympathetic. Maybe not Shrek, but you feel for the Penguin.
Yeah.
He was abandoned as a child. He lives in the sewer. I think there was a part of him that did want acceptance. I know that he had this plot to unalive a whole bunch of children, all of Gotham's firstborn, and I understand that that's super evil. But I don't think it he wasn't born evil. He had kind of the Wicked movie recently came out. Are people born wicked, or do they have wickedness thrust upon them? And I think he's the latter there. He was kind of left without a
Loathing.
choice. That's something I don't feel about this movie is loathing, unadulterated loathing for anyone's
For
face, voice,
your
or
face.
clothing.
I loathe it all.
No, you don't. That's a lie. You like a lot of it.
I had to finish the song.
It's
It's like a Splinter Cell. Once that goes in, you have to finish it.
Yeah. No, I'm with
Carry
you. So if you had stopped singing right there, it would have been like, do you need to finish it before we continue? Oh my God, I do, please.
Like, please.
The explosion at the masquerade ball, very unexpected, catches you off guard, and it was good. It was just done real well. And again, a similar thing that is neither good nor bad, but I love that Batman has his own stationery.
Yeah, that was funny.
When we regret that the children are unable to attend, and it's got the big Batman logo at the top. Like, you took the
And
time,
nice handwriting.
You took the time to print that out. Like that, like you needed to go into Photoshop or whatever and put that at the top of the page before writing that note. That's a level of petty that I hope to ascribe to.
One day.
As far as my individual good things, the last thing I have, I skipped over to save it for the end. Danny Elfman's score in this is
Chef's kiss.
Perfection. It's got the Tim Burton, bum 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 bum. It's got all that stuff, which is great. The Batman theme that they've reused in at least shades of
everywhere.
It in every Batman movie. Every movie that's featured Batman, every show that's featured Batman has a little nod to that somewhere in the score. And, Danny Elfman is a brilliant composer, and I love his Tim Burton music especially, but this is just the pinnacle for me. He did incredible.
He nailed this one.
Incredible. But yeah, that's it for my good, because I really just love this movie as a whole. I do have some bad, but that's it for my specific good.
I have some bad too. We're going to take a break after a word from our sponsor. We'll be right back with our bad stuff.
Today's episode is brought to you by the Gotham City Tree Lighting Extravaganza, Part 3. In a season filled with dark nights, shine a little light on the holiday and return to Gotham City's Tree Lighting Extravaganza Part 3. We know that Gotham can sometimes put the sleigh in sleigh ride, but this year our Christmas extravaganza has safety as our number one priority due to generous donations from the Shrek, Wayne, and Cobblepot families. Safety nets above the stage to catch any falling wannabe stars. Bat, cat, and penguin repellent will be handed out to all attendees, and we even have a surprise for the kiddos with a special appearance by the Red Triangle Circus. Sound like fun? Well, put on your best black and white stripes or leather and get up and join us at this year's Gotham City Tree Lighting Extravaganza Part 3, where we promise to bring the laughter, but not the slaughter. Call City Hall for tickets. Pricing may vary. Gotham City not responsible for supervillain attacks.
That's great. Part 3. Third time's the charm.
Third time's a charm. First time, it was the Red Triangle attack. Second time, the Ice Princess gets killed and the bats come out of the tree. So,
Yep. How did they time that?
time the bats coming out of the tree.
Yeah, turn the lights on and then boom.
How did they
Bats
get?
are like,
I'm
light.
more concerned with how they got all the bats in the tree.
The preparation in half of these attacks is just, all right, put them right there.
It's Batman level preparation, to be honest.
It is Batman level prep. There's some bad things in this movie. I think I have more than you.
I mean,
Do you want to go first?
I got more than I thought, but some of it are just
All right.
befuddling things.
Be befuddled.
First one, Selina's powers.
Thank you.
Okay. Number one, Catwoman doesn't have any superpowers. She is a non-powered character. And the fact that she's pushed out a very high building and hits the ground. Now, I know her fall was broken a little bit, but she should have been dead. And so she gets powers because stray cats nibble on her body.
Yeah.
That feels weird.
You're a meaningless secretary. Her words, not mine. You're a meaningless secretary, and now you're a gymnast-level fighter with amazing combat skills.
Yeah, the fighting and
because you fell out of a window.
Yeah, I don't get it. And then
Wrong.
the 9 lives thing, where she like literally has 9 lives seems a little ridiculous, but
yeah.
Yeah, I can look past it, but I've always, even from my first viewing, I knew who all these characters were, and I read comics, so it was like, why? Just why?
Why are we doing this?
Alongside of that, I also don't love the Penguin's death, and I just don't like the way that it was done when the Penguins are like escorting his body down the ramp into the water. It just looks.
It's one of the most awkward things ever.
No, again, never like that because the Penguins aren't actually touching it. So why is the body moving? Seems weird. And also, why are the Penguins so showing so much like love towards their fallen leader when, he was about to let all of them explode?
Yeah.
But to blow up the city, he was about to about to let all the Penguins die. So that seems silly. Along with that scene, again, another thing that I've hated, always disliked about this is when Batman takes off his mask and he doesn't have the eye shadow. So he's got the black around his eyes. Then it clips to Selina saying something, and then it clips back to him, and you see the skin around his eyes for him to rip the mask off. But one of the things I liked about the most recent Batman movie with Robert Pattinson is that when he's taken off the mask, you see that he's got the makeup around his eyes, and I don't. They do that with Arrow in the with Green Arrow in the Arrow show. I don't think there's anything wrong with you're already telling me to believe in a billionaire who dresses up like a bat in order to stop bad guys. I have no problem with the fact that putting some eyeshadow on to help conceal his identity. I don't have any problem believing that. I'm already on board. Why are you trying to make it like that part of it doesn't exist?
Well, it's not that it doesn't exist, but I'm sure that in the moment of character connecting with character and the phrase, we can just go home, you would have literally been taken out of that moment if all of a sudden a raccoon shows up on screen.
Okay, I don't think so, because in that scene, Selina looks like a mess. Her hair is crazy. Her costume is torn all over the place. Her black makeup is running all over the place. So I don't think it would have been that big a deal to just leave the makeup on. I really don't. Or at least for that scene, make the mask eye holes look different so that you don't see this giant cutout of eyes before he rips the mask.
Yeah. Right. From an editing perspective, just do it as he's already ripping it off. Don't show the eyes before that.
That was a weird thing. Now we talked about the preparation level of the Penguin stuff. One of the things is when he takes over the Batmobile. I have no problem buying into them putting the stuff on there, being able to open the armor. But the fact that the Penguin is controlling it, using like one of those little rides you would see outside of a supermarket. You know, the little quarter things where the car shakes.
Yeah.
He had somebody build a miniaturized Batmobile for him to do this stunt.
Yes.
That's insane.
How else would you do it?
That's insane. That's insane that's what the Penguin did. That's just, it's so silly. So silly.
Wait. Hold on. You mean to suggest that a film about a sewer-dwelling melted cheeseburger takes you out of it when he's riding a storefront 25 cents carnival pony?
It doesn't take me out of it. It's just one of those things where you're like, did he already have that? Did somebody have that and he stole
Yeah.
it? Did he build that just for this gag?
Yeah, it was a part of the carnival, and he had it lying around, and it was like, yeah, let's use it
I
now.
don't know. I'm not loving that.
Yep.
So I only have a couple more things. On Selena's answering machine for Gotham Lady Perfume. That is some serious casual sexism right there. They're like, your boss will be asking you to stay late for
You mean the whole
candlelit
film?
staff meetings. Now, that was real, just sliding it in there. Didn't love that.
Just to that point, this whole film is sexist.
I don't know that I agree with that, but that part especially, I would say, is just casual sexism. Though they're not really in your face about it, but it's like, oh, we're just putting that in there as a throwaway. Okay.
Well, so that one on top of, and this is a point that I have, that one on top of, if she comes back, we'll just push her out a higher window. That's what I did to your mother. She isn't housebroken. A lot of it comes from Shrek, and yeah, maybe that's just his character.
Well, I think that's why I didn't mind it as much, because he's clearly a misogynistic bad guy. But this was like an ad for women, and it was just it felt a little icky. More so than when the bad guy does it, because it's like, well, yeah, I kind of expect him to be a bad guy.
There's other nods. There's a lot of euphemisms that get used. There's a lot of sexual stuff. More than I think any other comic book film I've ever seen. I haven't done the homework.
Oh,
and obviously we just watched the movie, but to me, Watchmen aside, this one's got the most, like... And the reason I say this one has the most is because I feel like this one's targeted at kids. Whereas Watchmen, that's an adult, comic book.
Fair.
This one was targeted for kids.
Fair.
And I just felt like it was over the top.
I'm not gonna lie, I was a little surprised I was allowed to see it as young as I was. In '92, I was...
Bro, we grew up in the 90s. We got away with murder.
Yeah, that's true. Well, along the lines of, it being a kids, well, I'll say this first. The Ice Princess is really stupid.
Yeah.
She's intellectually dumb.
Oh, yeah.
I don't mean the character is. I don't mean it's stupid to include her. I mean intellectually, she is very not intelligent.
You are as smart as a mop.
Okay, the lights come on, and then I push the button. Wait, no, that's not right.
No,
I push the button, and then the lights come on. And then, Penguin is holding the electronic batarang, but he's not holding it. He's like, is that some sort of camera? Yeah, say cheese. He's holding it like he's about to throw it. He's not, like, holding it here. What? Why are you so dumb?
Maybe they did that so you don't feel bad when she does die.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. It was weird. So two other things are character things. You see, we were just talking about how misogynistic he is. Max Schreck is clearly a bad guy from the beginning. You know that he is not a good person. You know that he's an evil guy. Even if Penguin and Catwoman weren't in this movie, Schreck is a bad guy. He's not just sleazy. He is a bad person. And it seems inconsistent that he would sacrifice himself for his son at the party when the Penguin comes to take his son Chip as one of, Gotham's firstborn sons. It seems very strange to me that he would so quickly and willingly, be like, don't take Chip. Isn't it Max who betrayed you? Isn't it Max who tricked you? Isn't it Max who did all these terrible things? Take me, don't take him. That seems like such a heroic thing to do, because you know that the Penguin is going to kill you or try to kill you. So it seems so inconsistent, especially in the beginning when Chips, jumps in front of the circus and he's like, Dad, save yourself. Don't, no, run. And he does, like a coward. To now it's like, oh, wait, no, I'd give anything, just don't hurt my boy, my grown adult boy.
Right. It would be more on brand if he did sacrifice his son. But also, if you were going to make that the way the story goes, then what you needed was a scene that shared more of their relationship and how strenuous it was, how he's trying to give this legacy to his son, very Wonder Woman 84, where there is a legacy that he's trying to leave, but he doesn't know how to do it well. And it's all about setting up, the power plant and all the decisions they made. This is for Chip. This is for Chip. And then all of a sudden at that moment, again, hire me, DC. Again, at that moment of his son's life literally being held in the balance, he's like, no, I've worked too hard to make sure that you have something better than I did. Take me instead, because my legacy's up. He's going to get whatever I got. That would have been a good character moment.
That would have been fine, but you don't get that vibe from him, and to have this be... And then from that point on, he has very evil things going on. He doesn't do anything good at the end to help anybody. He shoots Selina. He, accuses Batman of stuff. It seems like such a weird way to get Max kidnapped by the Penguin. I feel like there are other ways you could have done it. It's weird. My last bad thing is, I know that the Red Triangle gang, the Red Triangle Circus, were bad people, but only the one clown had an issue with unaliving children.
Yeah.
And not even an issue, just kind of a question of like,
very quickly.
Just kind of like, are we sure about this? Like, should we hash this out a little more? But everybody else is totally on board with this real terrible thing.
And he sort of jumps
so
to that.
Strange to me that nobody else would question this decision. Of like, this seems like a big leap here.
Yeah, it's like, whoa, where did you were just running for office, and now boom, every firstborn. What's your name? Pharaoh? Every firstborn son must die. Like, what are we doing here?
I'm okay with causing a little chaos, but
Yep.
Let's ransack the city, destruction of property. I don't even mind hurting adults. But like, now we're just kidnapping sleeping children and we're going to, drown all of them. That seems super weird that nobody has a problem with that.
Yep.
But that's my last bad thing.
We had a fair bit of crossover. You covered about half of the things that I had. Some unique things that I have. I feel like the tone is so opposite from the original. Now, you pointed out that Burton was given the reins here. But I feel like if they were just going to say, okay, do what you will, there needed to be a little bit more cohesion between the last film. This one tonally is just its own thing. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying it's not the first one. You watch Batman Begins into Dark Knight, even into Dark Knight Rises. Tonally, they're consistent. You watch Spider-Man 1, Spider-Man 2, tonally consistent. Spider-Man 3 is where it gets a little more slapstick and goofy, even though the same director, but the tone is different. And I feel like with this, there isn't a ton of connective tissue between the first one and the second one, other than Keaton and Go.
I'd say that's fair. It definitely stands apart as it's a totally different kind of movie.
I don't like I like Danny DeVito's performance. I don't like that Penguin is a grotesque sewer-dwelling villain, because that makes no sense from his comic origins as a criminal mastermind.
Yes, I agree with that, especially because in the comics, the Penguin has always wanted to be more. Like he's
Yep.
always thought of himself as Gotham elite and a what do you call it, as running a criminal boss, running a
Yep.
criminal organization. And so yeah, it's
Colin
definitely
Farrell is nailing it right now.
it's definitely Burton making it his own, and it
Yeah.
is not really consistent with the comic version of the Penguin.
Now, to the tone, I feel like the tone is so different from the first one, but also the tone fights itself in this movie. It's too dark for kids, but it's too campy for adults at times. It's serious, but it's humorous. It's not as cohesive as it could be. And I feel like not only does it not really connect to its predecessor, at times it's like if you chopped up some of the scenes in this movie, you'd say, oh, this looks like a very serious character study. And then other times you're like, oh, this is Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
I think that is a fair statement for then. I think retroactively, if you look back and you're a fan of Tim Burton, you just recognize that, oh, this is just a Burton movie.
Right.
But a Burton movie didn't really have a definition really at this point in his career. It wasn't the...
It's Burton at his Burtonist.
It's Burton at his Burtoniest.
Last thing I have. This isn't a Batman movie.
Yeah.
It's just not. He is the second character in his own film. This movie is about the villains.
He's not even a secondary character. He's probably a fourthy character.
And to the character, he's a relatively static character. He does not have much development. It leaves you wondering why he's in the film at times, other than being Catwoman's love interest. Like there's really nothing for him to do.
Well, I mean, he's the foil to all of the evil plans that are going on by their three villains.
But think about it for just a second. You take Batman out of the way, Catwoman, Shrek, and Penguin will foil each other.
No, I think Penguin would have succeeded without Batman because they were in process of getting all the kids, and Catwoman only had eyes for revenge on Shrek.
Okay.
So
in a version of this could very much be the show Gotham. Right? Like where you don't need Batman.
Yeah.
And actually there's a lot of character development that you start, like you said, you're rooting for these villains. And they're masterfully created to where you're like, well, yeah, Batman's the protagonist, but really we're rooting for Oswald. And then we're rooting for Catwoman, but she's the anti-hero. Why is Batman in here?
You really don't see a lot of good guys because like they don't bring back Billy D. Williams as Harvey Dent. You see Jim Gordon twice, maybe.
Gordoning.
You're doing a real not good Gordon-y job. So yeah, you're right. I mean, this is very much a villain's movie, but it's also a very Tim Burton character movie because it's about, suburbia goes dark. It's, here's this meek and mild and unconfident woman who, through this wacky circumstance, now becomes this super confident, powerful, sexy vigilante. The Penguin, again, this very sad, very dark backstory turns him into someone that is viewed as a monster, even at times when he doesn't want to be viewed as a monster. And you see him kind of go through that transition. And you see that in things like Edward Scissorhands. You see that in Beetlejuice. You see that in a lot of Ed Wood. You see that in a lot of Tim Burton stuff of like these sympathetic weirdos that are oftentimes through no fault of their own or through not entirely the fault of their own driven to these darker ends,
which I think is how Burton sees himself.
Absolutely Absolutely.
So that's my bad.
All right, not bad. Not bad for your bad. You wanna jump into some spiritual things?
Yeah, there I had a couple things that popped up, but the one that I liked the most was a line. I think it was Cobblepot that said it. He said, "We're both monsters. You're just a well-respected monster, and I'm not."
Mm.
I love that line because it brought to mind Romans 3, which is, "No one is righteous, no, not one. Nobody understands. No one seeks after God. All have turned aside. Together they've become worthless. No one does good, not even one." And I liked the line was aimed at leveling the playing field, at just saying, look, we're both monsters here. People just like you. But don't fool yourself into thinking that you're better than me or I'm worse than you or anything like that.
Yeah.
Now that's a dangerous slope to live on, but I do think it's a plateau that I think followers of Jesus need to understand. Like, we're all in the same boat here. We're all monsters. We all have sinner and saint going on in us at all times. And when we position ourselves as though we don't live in that reality, as though we have, yes, we've been saved by grace. Yes, Jesus has made the difference in our lives, saved us from sin, and we are bound towards communion and community with him. We still live here, and we still have a sin nature, and we are not better than those that we look down upon because of certain privileges or predispositions or anything like that. And sort of understanding, like, the person in the jail cell is just as bad as the preacher. We all have a sin nature. We're all flawed. And so leveling that playing field was really interesting to see it not coming from a protagonist-antagonist conversation, but from both villains aimed at each other.
Yeah, that's really good. And it kind of matches alongside mine, because what really stood out to me was the idea of masks and duality. So we all have masks we wear in society. We'll sometimes wear, we have to put on our parenting mask, we have to put on our work mask, our friend mask, whatever it may be. But I think as believers we often do that as well. We go to church, we put on our Christian mask, and we raise our hands and we pray and we say, bless you, brother, bless you, sister, and oh, I love the message today. It really convicted me. And then we, spend the rest of our time with our regular mask on, or without a mask on, and we see, kind of our what our true self is. But if we do that for too long, the mask will start to falter. The mask starts to look like Catwoman's mask at the end of the movie, where it's kind of shredded. There's shades of it there, but you're seeing Catwoman's true nature here. That there's this crazy that's behind the mask that you didn't notice when it was totally covered. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we have to be honest about who we are, and the only way to find like real peace and real connection within our faith is to not wear a mask and just understand that, like, listen, I don't need to put on a show because I'm at church. I don't need to put on a show around my Christian friends versus the rest of my friends, or in front of my family versus in front of my this people. You need to be real and honest about who you are, especially if you believe that you want other people in your life to see Jesus through you. If you want other people to see what kind of change that can make in your life, continuing to wear a mask when you're one way and take it off when you're the other way is not gonna do anything. You need to confront your imperfections. You need to confront your faults. And this is when you rely on Jesus to help you deal with them. Because hiding them, covering them up, wearing a mask when you're around people of like mind, just makes you dishonest. It makes you untrustworthy, and it makes you disingenuous. And that's going to be found out sooner or later.
Yeah. It's good stuff, man.
Yes, sir.
You want to rate this cinematic experience?
Listen, I'm not gonna make any bones about the fact that Tim Burton is my favorite director. I love Tim Burton. I'm a huge
Uh-huh.
fan. I love that, again, I said in the beginning of this episode, Catwoman was my first crush. I love a Christmas movie. I love a superhero movie. This itself is one of my favorite movies, just in general. This is one of my top 10 favorite movies of all time, just on my personal list. So
And therefore,
for me, it is a Keaton. It is its namesake. Listen,
all right.
it's not a Conroy. It has its flaws. It has issues. I'm just able to look past them because I love it. So it's a Keaton for me, especially retroactively.
Retroactively, to me, this is a Pattinson. It's okay. It's quirky. It's fun at times. There's plenty of what the heck moments. But there's nothing to make me not watch it. It was fun. There's a couple things that are like, but overall, it's okay. So it's a Pattinson.
All right. Now, before we close out, one question I do want to ask is just, because you asked me in the beginning a question like this: is Batman Returns a Christmas movie, or is it just a superhero movie that happens to be at Christmas?
It's a superhero movie that happens at Christmas time.
So it's not a Christmas movie for you.
No, it's
Okay.
a Christmas is a device used to propel the story and its setting, but it's not a Christmas film the way Home Alone is, the way Polar Express is, the way White Christmas is.
All right, I would fight you on Home Alone because I think if you set Home Alone in the middle of summer, nothing about the movie changes.
That's true. But why would they go to France?
Summer vacation instead of Christmas vacation. You could take a
How
trip.
dare you question Macaulay Culkin?
You could take a trip any time of the year, and someone could still break in. Would the traps look a little different? Yeah, because they wouldn't have a Christmas tree with the ornaments. Maybe they wouldn't have the ice on the stairs, but he'd find other things to do. Doesn't have to be Christmas. For me, this beautiful movie is a yearly watch. This is
it does have to be a Christmas movie. Because Joe Pesci doesn't pretend to be a cop just checking in around the holidays. There's no reason to play Carol of the Bells. The snow shoveling, like all of it, none of it makes sense if it's not Christmas.
Right, but those are minor changes that you would make. The overall plot of a young kid is stuck home alone, and two inept criminals break into the house, and he finds very Saw-esque ways to injure these guys. That's the basic plot.
Yeah, but if we're gonna dumb down plots, it's like Lord of the Rings is Star Wars is Harry Potter. It's an orphan boy who happens to find some powers.
There are similar plot points between those three epic fantasies, but the idea with Home Alone is that it doesn't have to be at Christmas for the most of the plot to not change at all. You're saying, they don't have to have shoveling snow. Okay, so he doesn't hit the guy with a shovel at the end of the movie. He hits him with a bat. He hits him with a rake. He hits him with a pool noodle. I don't know. But it doesn't matter. They don't play Carol of the Bells. So they pick a different song that has that kind of like epic feel to it. It doesn't have to be Carol of the Bells.
So then it's a different film, right?
No, it's not a different film. It would be a different film because it wouldn't be set at Christmas, but the plot of the movie does not change. Minor directing choices would change, but the movie itself doesn't really change.
Sure, but with these decisions and these choices, it's a Christmas movie.
Right, but I would just argue, I would argue that in the same way Batman Returns is a Christmas movie, the same way Home Alone is. Would Batman Returns be pretty much the same if it was set in the same season as Batman 89? I mean, mostly. It would mostly be the same.
Yeah.
But setting it at Christmas makes it a little more Christmassy because you have the plot of the Christmas lighting thing. The Penguin is in, kind of a cold-blooded, ice-themed villain, so that works. I'm just
All
saying the
right, I
same
see
way
what you're
that Home
saying.
Alone is a Christmas movie, Batman Returns is a Christmas movie.
In the same way the Grinch is a Christmas movie. What do you guys think? Leave us a comment about whether Chris is wrong or Home Alone is not a Christmas movie. It just needs to be set in Aruba.
It is a Christmas movie, but it doesn't have to be. That's the point. That's the point. But we're going to end here. We're going to end here because we could keep going on this because listen, you mentioned Polar Express too. Don't even get me started on the problems with that movie. I know we only do comic book movies on this show, but if we did the Polar Express, I will have only negative to say about it.
Is Rudolph a Christmas movie? Is Frosty a Christmas movie?
No.
Is Charlie Brown's Christmas a Christmas movie?
Frosty is another one that doesn't have to be Christmas. That could be any time during the winter season.
Just a whiny snowman.
Yeah, exactly.
Except for Santa showing up and bringing him back to life.
So what? Santa is only alive at Christmas time? If you watch the Santa Claus, he's an all year round kind of guy, and he comes back and visits during the course of the year.
Follow us on social media.
Follow us on all of our things at Sanctum Sanctorum Podcast, at Sanctum Pod. We're going to throw them all up there. But make sure you follow us, like, and comment. And remember, kids, anything can be a Christmas movie if you want it bad enough. You just got to want it.
How the Grinch Stole Labor Day.
So Merry Christmas.
And remember, kids, a kiss can be deadly if you mean it.
No, you said it wrong.
I said it wrong on purpose.
You said you got to say it the right. Mistletoe can be deadly if you eat it, but a kiss can be even deadlier if you mean it.
And diarrhea can really hurt you.
Don't you dare. Don't you dare